Good evening, everyone. I'm Sai Priya from MedWorld Expo. We are a unified digital healthcare platform connecting manufacturers, distributors, hospitals, clinics, labs, and healthcare experts worldwide. We're so excited to welcome Ms. Anahita Tanwar to today's session. Anahita holds a master's and MPhil in clinical psychology from Manipal University. Through a recent graduate, she already brings impressive experience, having conducted over 400 hours of therapy with a wide range of clients. Her special interest lies in family and marital therapy, and she is deeply passionate about helping people strengthen their relationships, whether with family, friends, partners, or colleagues. This topic is especially meaningful as relationships form the foundation of our lives. They can be our greatest source of joy, but also our biggest challenge. Strong, healthy relationships are essential to our overall well being and happiness. Today, Dr. Anahita will share her insights and provide us with practical tools to nurture and sustain these vital connections. Please join me in welcoming her. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for that great welcome. So, hello everyone and welcome. Today, we are diving into a topic that every single one of us, regardless of our relationship status, has either struggled with or actively avoided, which is conflict. We're not talking about simply bickering, we are examining the anatomy of a healthy fight. So, as a person who has been on this earth since the last 26 years, I have seen firsthand how we navigate the challenges of relationships. Not long ago, the concept of a couples therapist was non existent. You got married, and that was it. You were stuck for life, and if you didn't like it, well, you could only hope for an early death. The vow was till death do us part, not as we have it today, till love dies. For the first time in history, the survival of the family depends on the happiness of the couple. We have never invested more in love, and we have never broken up more in the name of it. So let me ask you a question. How many of you are currently in a romantic relationship? Can we see a show of hands? Next. Yes. Yes. And how many of you would like to be in one? And now for the next question. How many of you would like to be out of the relationship you're in, at least sometimes? So, relationships are not static, they come with a host of contradictory feelings. Our ability to hold both ends of these feelings, to be able to still care and be angry, or to be interested and still want to get away, is significant. And here's the thing, I live with the one perennial truth: the quality of our relationships is what determines the quality of our life. The bonds and connections we make with other people give us a greater sense of meaning, happiness, and well being than any other human experience. This is why I'd like to imagine a world where we can experience our relationships with vitality, aliveness, and vibrancy. However, to achieve such a state, we must first address a fundamental part of all relationships: conflict. How we fight is just as important as how we love. I want you to take a moment and think about a recent argument you had with your partner, or a friend, or a family member. It doesn't have to be a major fight, it could be something small, like a disagreement over who was supposed to take out the trash, or a persistent pile of dirty dishes in the sink. Remember that familiar, ugly crescendo of feeling like your heart rate is rocketing and your thoughts are spiraling? Now try to recall that deeply upsetting bewilderment when you found yourself asking for the umpteenth time, how could they possibly be doing this again when they know how much it upsets me? This feeling of being so angry at the person you love, yet in the next breath wanting to be held by that very same person, is a paradox that sits at the core of all relationships. We have been taught to believe that fighting is a sign of a failing relationship. We think that if we love each other enough, we shouldn't have to fight, and that arguments are a problem to be avoided at all costs. But decades of groundbreaking research tell us the exact opposite. The central message is that fighting is good for our relationships, not bad. The success of a relationship is not determined by if a couple fights, but by how they fight. This foundational understanding is the key to reframing conflict from a threat to an opportunity for deeper connection and growth. And so today, I'm going to share a blueprint for healthy conflict. And by the end of the session, you'll have the tools to ensure that the quality of your relationships, the single biggest predictor of life satisfaction, is strong enough to handle anything. Yes. To truly understand how to fight well, we must first look at the science that uncovers the secrets of relationship masters. 52 years ago, the founders of the Gottman Institute, John and Julie Gottman, put the study of relationships under the microscope. In their lab, they observed more than 3,000 diverse couples, including individuals of various ages, ethnicities, and sexual orientations. Couples were videotaped as they engaged in conflict discussions, and researchers synchronized the video with physiological data measuring respiration, heart rate, and stress hormones. They followed these couples for as long as 20 years, gathering a wealth of data on what makes relationships succeed or fail. What they discovered was astonishing. The, the research found that almost all couples fight. But by observing a couple's interaction during the first 3 minutes of a conflict discussion, researchers could predict with a remarkable 96% accuracy not only how the rest of that conversation would unfold, but also how the relationship would fare 6 years down the road. Ultimately, their observations allowed them to predict a relationship's outcome with 90% accuracy. This level of predictive power shows us that conflict is not a mysterious or random event. It follows predictable patterns that we can learn to recognize and change. The research also revealed three major healthy styles of fighting, demonstrating that there is no single right way to handle conflict. So let's walk through a scenario to see how these fundamental relational tendencies play out in real life. Imagine you're standing in a supermarket checkout aisle, patiently waiting your turn. The line is long and you have been there for a while. Suddenly, a person walks directly to the front and begins to unload their groceries, completely ignoring the long queue of people behind them. This single event can trigger three distinct knee jerk reactions, each one a window into a person's preferred conflict style. The volatile response. This is the most intense and immediate reaction. The person's feelings erupt with passion and a need to prove a point. They might confront the person directly with a statement like, "Hey, can you not see the line?" This reaction is fueled by a desire to enforce a rule and ensure justice, often without considering the full context. The second one is the avoidant response. This style is characterized by a desire to avoid confrontation entirely. Rather than getting upset, the person rationalizes the situation to prevent an argument. Their internal monologue might be like, "She's probably having a bad day and she's got kids too, so I'll just let it go." The focus shifts from the offense to creating a narrative that allows them to agree to disagree and sidestep any potential conflict. And the last one is the validator response. This is a more measured problem solving approach. The person calmly observes the situation and seeks to understand it before reacting. They might question their own understanding of the situation. Maybe we went through because there are different cues for different counters. Am I in the wrong line? This response is an attempt to jump into a logical solution before emotions escalate, mirroring the calm, patient style of a skilled mediator. Now, the crucial finding was that couples with any of these styles can be successful provided they adhere to the single most powerful metric for relational health, the ratio of positives to negatives. During a conflict discussion, successful couples maintain a ratio of at least 5 positive responses for every one negative response. Outside of conflict discussions, successful couples had an even higher positive to negative ratio, which was 20 is to 1. Having a ratio below 5 is to 1 within conflict became one of the most potential divorce indicators found in the Gottman research. So, what exactly counts as a negative interaction? A negative emotional state can result from a wide range of behaviors, from minor slip ups to more significant relational damage. Some common examples include using the four horsemen, which includes criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. These are considered to be the most destructive communication pattern, and I shall be speaking more on this in the upcoming slides. The second one would be lashing out at your partner when you're feeling overwhelmed instead of taking a time out, raising your voice during a conflict, neglecting to do something you told your partner you would do, invalidating your partner's feelings with phrases like you're overreacting, rejecting bids for connection, which are small attempts your partner makes to get your attention or affection, or using a harsh startup by beginning a conversation with an attack or accusation, or rejecting a repair attempt when your partner tries to de escalate a conflict, not listening to your partner when they are speaking, and lastly, sometimes forgetting important milestones or events that are meaningful to your partner. To generalize, for each one of these negative interactions, you need 5 or more positive interactions to even out the ratio. These positive responses can be as simple as a head nod, a laugh, a shared humor, or a statement like, fair enough. Here are some tips to have even more positive interactions. You should share appreciation. Tell your partner 3 things you appreciate about them every single day. And you should show affections often. Affection can be both physical and verbal, like holding hands or saying, I love you. Be an active listener. Make sure you're actually listening to understand and not just to respond. Ask questions, summarize, make eye contact. Do something for your partner that takes stress away from them, like a chore or a task they normally are responsible for. Show your partner you're thinking of them. Buy them their favorite treat or remember to ask them about an important meeting at work they told you about. You can even show validation. Phrases like, that makes sense, or I can understand why you feel that way, can make a world of difference, even if you don't agree with your partner's perspective. Most importantly, it's important to have fun together. Make time for weekly date nights or create a ritual of connection on a daily basis, like having coffee together or taking a walk. You should even respond positively to bids for connection. Be aware of when your partner is trying to connect with you. For example, if your partner asks how your day was, say more than just fine. Share with detail, then ask them about their day as well. And very, very importantly, practice empathy. Especially during conflict, it is important to try to understand and share your partner's feelings. And this ratio provides the first actionable blueprint for how to fight right. Now, first we have to talk about the body's betrayal, like when our primal brain actually takes over. Now, when we understand what relational health looks like, let's explore why it's so difficult to achieve it. When a conflict begins to escalate, we are no longer in our rational thinking brain. The skills and intentions we plan to use, they go out of the window, and we are instead taken over by automatic knee-jerk responses. This is a state of physiological arousal known as flooding, which occurs when a person's internal heart rate rockets up about 100 beats a minute. Even if a person appears calm on the outside, their body is signaling an extreme threat as though they are being attacked by a lion. In this state, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for our rational thought, it shuts down. People cannot think straight, listen well, or creatively problem solve. When faced with this perceived threat, our bodies have 3 primary automatic ways of reacting: fight, flight, and fix. We are all prone to one or more of these primal responses. Fight is the aggressive confrontational mode. This involves yelling, using aggressive language, and the impulse to attack. Flight is the impulse to physically or emotionally exit the situation to say, I'm out of here. The most common manifestation of this is stonewalling. This is more than taking a healthy break. It is the act of completely shutting down and offering no signs of listening to the partner, walling oneself away from them. This is what it looks like. And fix, which is the last one, is an anxiety driven need to regulate the partner. This response is known as fawn in somatic terms, and in human relationships, it is called codependence or enabling. The person may twist themselves in knots to make their partner happy, believing that their own well being is dependent on the other person's emotional state. This is not a mature way of working through a problem. It is a primal coping mechanism that always originates in childhood. Now, let me just try to give you an understanding of this through an example. Now, imagine Sarah and Mike. They've been having a stressful week, and Mike forgot to take out the trash, which was their agreed upon chore. When Sarah brings it up, she's already frustrated. Instead of saying, "Hey, can you please take the trash out?" she snaps, "Seriously? You forgot the trash again? You never help out." Now Mike feels attacked. His body immediately goes into a state of flooding. His heart pounds, his palms get sweaty, and his rational brain checks out. He has three automatic options now. Mike's fight response. He could get defensive and aggressive, yelling back, "Are you kidding me? You know how busy I've been. I'm not the only one who lives here." This escalates the conflict into a full blown argument with both partners saying things that they will regret later on. Now, Mike's flight response. He could emotionally or physically check out. He might cross his arms, turn his back on Sarah, and give her the silent treatment. And this is a form of stonewalling. He's still in the room, but he's walled himself off, offering no signs of listening or engagement. Now, the third one, which is Mike's fixed response. Now, Mike could immediately go into fix it mode. He might frantically grab the trash bag and say, "I'm so sorry. I'll take it out right now. Please don't be mad at me." While this seems like a positive action, it's driven by anxiety and a desperate need to calm Sarah down, not a healthy desire to solve the problem. He's twisting himself into knots, prioritizing her emotional state over his own. Now, the key to a healthier outcome lies in recognizing the flood. If Mike, in that moment of escalating conflict, notices his heart racing and his anger rising, he can consciously choose a different path. Instead of reacting, he can say, "I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. I need to take a break." This is a crucial act of self regulation that allows his body to calm down and his prefrontal cortex to come back online. He can then return to the conversation in a more rational state, ready to listen and problem solve. Now, the key to overcoming these automatic responses is to consciously intervene in the habitual pattern. The mystic Jiddu Krishnamurti said, "True liberation is freedom from our own automatic responses." The first and most critical step in managing conflict is to recognize when you're entering one of these states and to intentionally choose a different door, to take a breath, take a break, or take a walk around the block. This act of self regulation is the prerequisite for all healthy conflict skills. Now, when we are in a flooded state, our best intentions and rational thoughts disappear, and we fall back on a predictable set of self defeating behaviors. Think of them as the playbook of defeat. John Gottman identified four behaviors known as the four horsemen of the apocalypse. They are the big predictors of relationship demise. The first one is criticism. This is not just a simple complaint, it is an attack on a partner's character. It involves blaming a problem on a personality flaw, such as saying, "Why are you such a slob?" instead of expressing a need about the dishes. The important thing is to learn the difference between expressing a complaint and criticizing. Complaint is, "I was scared when you were running late and didn't call me. I thought we had agreed that we would do that for each other." Criticism sounds something like, "You never think about how your behavior is affecting other people. I don't believe you are that forgetful. You're just selfish. You never think of others. You never think of me." The second one is contempt. Here, we are capable of being truly mean. We can treat our partners with disrespect, mock them with sarcasm, ridicule them, call them names, or use body language like eye rolling or scoffing. The target of this behavior is made to feel despised and worthless, such as, "You're such a loser. Why did I ever marry you?" This behavior, known as contempt, goes far beyond mere criticism. While criticism attacks your partner's character, contempt assumes a position of moral superiority over them. For example, imagine a couple, Ananya and Rishabh. Ananya is a stay at home mom, and when her husband returns home, he relaxes by playing video games. Ananya's frustration boils over, and fueled by contempt, she lashes out. You're tired? Cry me a river. I have been with the kids all day, running around like mad to keep this house going, and all you do when you come home from work is flop down on the sofa like a child and play those idiotic video games. I don't have time to deal with another kid. Could you be more pathetic? Now, contempt is fueled by long simmering negative thoughts about your partner, which come to a head when the perpetrator attacks from a position of relative superiority. More importantly, contempt is the single greatest predictor of divorce. It must be eliminated. Now, the third one is the most common of all, which is defensiveness. And it is typically a response to criticism. We have all been defensive, and this occurs when we feel unjustly accused. We start fishing for excuses or play the innocent victim so that our partner backs off. For example, I did to pay the bills. Or, well, you didn't pay them on time previously either. And the last one is stonewalling. And as mentioned earlier, this is the ultimate retreat. This is usually a response to contempt. The person shuts down completely and offers no signs of listening to their partner, walling themselves off from their partner. They tune out, turn away, act busy, or engage in distracting behaviors. And building on these, the relational therapist Terry Real identified 5 common losing strategies that are guaranteed to drive your partner away and leave you feeling lonely and disconnected. They are called losing strategies because they work against your ultimate goal of a loving, supportive relationship. Now, let's talk about a common scenario with losing strategies. Okay. So imagine a couple, Nikita and Aditya, who are trying to decide where to go on vacation. Nikita wants to go to the mountains, while Aditya set on the beach. Here's how they might unknowingly use these losing strategies. The first one, needing to be right. Nikita insists the mountains are objectively a better choice. She pulls up weather statistics, reviews of hiking trails, and even articles on the health benefits of mountain air. See, Nikita argues, I'm right. The mountains are the logical choice. Why can't you just admit that? Now, this isn't just about compromise, it's about winning the argument. And as Terry Real puts it, you can be right or you can be married. Which is more important to you? Now, Nikita is prioritizing being right over finding a solution that works for both of them. Second one is controlling your partner. Aditya, frustrated by Nikita's persistence, tries to change Nikita's mind. If only you were more spontaneous, our trips would be so much happier, Aditya says. Aditya believes that if Nikita would just become a different person, less rigid and more flexible, their relationship would improve. This is a futile attempt to fix Nikita, a classic losing strategy rooted in the false belief that you can change someone else, because the only person you can truly change is yourself. The third one is the unbridled self expression. The argument escalates. Aditya explodes. You always have to have your way. We never do what I want to do. This volcano of self venting is full of absolutes, like always or never, and oversharing of negative emotions. It's a venting session, not a constructive conversation, and it drives a wedge between them instead of bringing them closer. The fourth one is retaliation. Now, feeling hurt by Aditya's outburst, Nikita decides to get even. The next day, when Aditya suggests watching a movie together, Nikita says, why would I want to watch a movie with you? You just yelled at me yesterday about how selfish I am. Now, this is a perverse form of communication where Nikita is offending from the victim position, hoping that by hurting Aditya, he will finally get it. This only, however, perpetuates a cycle of pain and even more further retaliation. And the last one comes withdrawal. Now, after the fight, Aditya becomes distant and emotionally unavailable. Now, when Nikita tries to bring up the vacation again, Aditya just shrugs and says, I don't care. Do whatever you want. This isn't a healthy timeout. It's a permanent act of emotional withdrawal. Aditya has built a wall, stopping all sharing of thoughts and feelings and creating a massive, massive disconnect. Now, the key to a successful relationship is to recognize and avoid these losing strategies. By identifying these patterns in your own behavior, you can consciously choose a different, more loving path. Now, another particularly destructive and common pattern that encompasses many of these strategies is something known as kitchen sinking. This is the act of piling up all the grievances, like dirty dishes from the last 5 years, into a single argument to the point that the original issue gets completely lost. The conversation escalates to include past lateness, comments from his mother, discussions about an ex boyfriend, and bringing in the troops, other people who agree with you. This onslaught of attack produces immediate defensiveness and will always, and I guarantee, always fail to advance your cause. The fundamental antidote is to stick to the single issue at hand and to focus on the behavior and not the character. To avoid kitchen sinking, the speaker offers three rules for healthier conflict. Number one is stick to the issue. Focus solely on the one thing you're talking about right now. Don't bring up past events, other issues, or outside opinions. Adding dirty dishes to the sink will only lead to more defensiveness, not clarity. Second one, focus on the behavior, not character. Instead of attacking who your partner is as a person, focus on what they did. A behavior is actually a specific action. It doesn't define a person's entire identity. For example, instead of saying, "You're so selfish," try saying, "When you came home late, I felt overlooked and unimportant." And most importantly, which we often tend to forget, convey that you still like the person. This is a crucial distinction. While you may dislike a specific behavior, you can still show that you like and respect your partner as a person. This provides them with dignity, making it easier for them to take responsibility for their actions. Focus on your own feelings and experiences rather than listing out your partner's flaws. We have to be able to separate the behavior from the person, because we both know what you did was bad, but I don't view you as a bad person is extremely important. Now, beyond the dishes, which is unearthing the deeper truth. Now, we all know that we are not supposed to do what we are not supposed to do in a fight. So, why do we keep doing it? The answer is simple and yet profound. The fight is never really about what you think it's about. The Gottman research found that shockingly, 69% of all relationship problems are perpetual, meaning they can never be fully solved. Couples often get stuck in a merry-go-round of the same disagreements that become a self-perpetuating loop. It has been suggested that most couples establish their fights as early as the second date and then spend the next 20 something years fighting repeatedly over the same issues. Because of this, the ultimate goal of conflict is not to solve it, but to manage it. The fight over dishes, lateness, or money is a surface level issue. Underneath it lies a deeper relational hurt. Now, there's a difference between content versus structure. Surface level conflicts may involve common transgressions such as dishes left in the sink, laundry on the floor, excessive social media scrolling, or chronic lateness. Even a political conversation can end with an aggressive statement questioning the partner's intelligence or judgment. We tend to believe that the specific topic, which is the content, is what the fight is about. However, it is actually the structure, the hidden agenda that lies underneath, that is the true issue. Now, there are three hidden agendas. According to the work of Howard Markin, people primarily fight over three core issues. The first one is power and control. Conflicts determine who makes the decision, who has the power, and whose priorities matter more, or who gets to say I when the other person then has to say we. Fights about power and control can sound like, "You undermine me with the kids." "Because I don't make as much as money as you, I feel like I have to check with you before I buy anything. I know you don't ask me, but you don't have to." Or, "We only have sex when you want to." That's number one, power and control. The second one is care and closeness. Now, disputes center on reliability and integrity, such as, can I trust you? Do you have my back? Do you live with the best interest in my mind? Or am I held by you? Fights about care and closeness can sound like, why can't you support me when I'm anxious rather than make me feel worse about my coping skills? Why am I the one to text or call you? I pursue and you distance. Why don't we have sex anymore? And the third one is centering around respect and recognition, which is, do you value me? What is the integrity here? And fights about respect and recognition can sound something like, you go out with your friends without asking me what I'm doing, or you never acknowledge my professional accomplishments. Or the last one, which is, I don't think you realize how much I do around the house. Now, these conflicts are actually rooted in deep needs, expectations, longings, and hopes. Now, steps to communicating right. Now, understanding and owning our reactivity. Now, to break the destructive loop, the first step is to focus inward and to understand one's own emotional response. We have to understand the reactivity versus wrongdoing. Now, when an individual starts to lose it, the first question to ask is, what is it that I'm actually reacting to? The reaction is not just to the external offense, which is the dishes or the lateness, but to something that you are experiencing internally. Therefore, the priority must be to understand your own reactivity, not the wrongdoing of the other person. This is demonstrated by the fact that the same action performed by a different person might not trigger the same intense response, indicating that the reaction is rooted in the specific story of the relationship. Second one, which be the role of preceding beliefs. A belief precedes how you interpret the other person's behavior. For example, if your partner makes their own cup of coffee, but not one for you, you might assume that they were just distracted. However, if you have decided a long time ago that they don't love you enough, that specific omission gets right into the box of I'm not loved enough, even though the actual fight will be about the coffee. And I think we have all known about the cognitive biases that are usually against us. Now, our minds also work against us in conflict, driven by two powerful cognitive biases. The first is confirmation bias. We have likely already decided that our partner's lateness means that they don't care about us. We then actively pick up evidence to confirm this belief while disregarding for counter evidence. Any evidence that would challenge this core idea, such as the multiple times the partners actually came home early, was on time, or arranged special things for us, is disregarded and will not matter anymore. The second is the characterological or circumstantial attribution error. This is a tendency to explain our own negative behaviors as being caused by circumstances, like I was late because of traffic or I have a busy life, while we explain our partner's same behavior as a flaw in their character. They are disrespectful, they don't care, they are selfish, they don't understand the notion of time. And when couples are in conflict, this internal bias leads to an external interaction called contraction. This causes a shift to absolutes, which is a lack of flexibility and nuance that drives us towards pseudo factual talk. Statements like, you're always late, you never care about what I say, or you never show up are instantly presented as fact. This is where our communication breaks down. A critical point is understanding that much of what is presented as fact is actually an intensification of someone's experience. For example, I feel like you never show up is distinct from the statement, you never show up. The moment one partner uses you never, which is the pseudo factual talk, the other instantly reacts defensively. They will try to dismantle the whole package condemnation by citing that one time they did show up, proving the absolute statement inaccurate and leading to a complete impasse. The better approach is to state the feeling. It feels like that happens all the time. Individuals are allowed to be angry. but they are not allowed in the same way to think that your experience, therefore, is the reality or the truth of the situation. The anger reflects the truth of your experience, but not necessarily the truth of what actually happens. And that's a crucial distinction to be made. Now, strategies for functional communication. Now, the second step is to escape the loop, and it involves changing how the disagreement is voiced and responded to. And this is known as the XYZ statement. A highly effective communication tool for avoiding any kind of pseudo factual talk is the XYZ statement, and it has been derived from Markman's work. Now, the structure is when you do X in situation Y, I feel Z. For example, when you thank everybody for helping you with this big project and you don't mention me at all, it makes me feel that you don't recognize my contributions or value, staying home with the kids, taking care of the house while you did your thing. Now, the benefit of using this kind of a structure is that this structure focuses on the speaker's feeling, which is, I feel invisible, rather than defining the partner with critical labels like, you are a jerk, you are selfish. By articulating what happens to me, the speaker invites the partner to relate to their experience without confusing it with facts. Now, to stop the recurring fights, one must recognize their own role in the cycle as each person ends up engaging in the mutual creation of negative behavior. In a perpetuating loop, each partner does something that makes the other react in exactly the opposite way of what you would want. And this is known as the attack justification cycle. Now, if one partner attacks, which is like, again, you are doing this, they invite the partner to justify their actions. The attacker then criticizes the justification without noticing that their initial attack invited the justification itself. This means we create the other by doing things that make them perform the unwanted behavior. So the mandate is clear. If a different behavior is desired from the partner, it's actually we who need to do something else. So you can actually surprise your partner. You can do that by changing your reaction, such as saying, have a great time, instead of, again, you're going out. And this changes the whole dance because the partner was expecting the negative critique. Next one would be change your brand, which is when you surprise the other one and do a totally different thing than what you have become known for, you effectively change your brand in the relationship, which is basically you're creating an opening for a new story for the relationship. And we have defined the problems now and discussed a couple of strategies to navigate them. Now let's talk about some other solutions. The difference between masters and disasters come down to a few simple conscious skills that can be learned and practiced. And these are some of the other skills of repair that I'll be talking about now. Now, skill one is the power of the pause. When you feel that familiar upsurge of hurt and anger, you must stop immediately and call for a break. State clearly when you will return to continue the conversation. During that break, your only task is to self soothe. Do not think about the fight. This act of self regulation is the most important prerequisite for all healthy conflict management. The second one would be the art of a softened startup. Now, the masters of a relationship avoid a harsh startup and instead use a softened startup. This approach consists of a simple formula of I statements that describe you and not your partner. So, start with what you feel, describe the situation at hand, and state what you need to make things better. For example, instead of saying, you're just too cheap to take me out to dinner, a softened startup would be, I'm feeling frustrated about needing to cook every night. Would you please take me out to dinner today? The third one is called the customer service approach to repair. Now, this is a radical idea that most of us usually get wrong. Repair is not a dialogue. It is not about each of you processing your difficulties at the same time. When a partner is disgruntled or upset with you, the other must step into the role of the customer service window. The goal is to bring your partner out of disharmony with you back into harmony with you. And this requires a very structured approach. The first thing is simple, and yet many people get wrong, which is to listen. Put aside your own reality and enter into your partner's experience. You must be able to summarize their position and receive their confirmation that you got it right. Second one would be to acknowledge. Acknowledge what you did without any buts or justifications. The correct response is simply, yes, I did that. It's as simple as that. And the third one would be apologize. The A plus apology goes beyond a simple I'm sorry. It requires you to state, this isn't the first time I've done it. It's the sort of thing I can do, and I'm going to work on it. This level of comprehensive accountability and acknowledgement constitutes a very powerful and effective apology. Now, imagine, let's say I'm going to give an example now. Now, imagine if Sarah is upset with her partner Mike, who agreed to clean the kitchen but got distracted by a new hobby and didn't follow through. So this is how it's going to look like. Now, if Mike was to use a very defensive dialogue, if he were to listen and summarize, he would say, I know, I'll get to it. Why do you always have to nag me the second I sit down? And when it came to the acknowledgement, he would probably say, but I had a really stressful day at work and I needed 5 minutes of downtime before tackling a chore. And the apology, I'm sorry, but you need to understand that I'm busy too. But when you're at the customer window service, the way you would want to go about for an effective approach, you would probably listen by saying, so you feel hurt and disappointed because you counted on me to clean the kitchen after dinner. And when I started my project instead, it made you feel like my priorities are somewhere else and you were left to deal with the mess. Did I get that right? That's confirmation. Okay. The way you would acknowledge it, yes, I did that. I started my project instead of doing what I promised I would do. And the apology would somewhere look like, I'm sorry, this isn't the first time I've let a chore aside. This is the sort of thing I can do when I get absorbed in something new, and I'm going to work on improving my follow through. Fourth one would be basically owning your feelings. Now, the greatest challenge in conflict isn't your partner actually. It's the story you tell yourself about your partner. Now, Terry Real's relational life therapy identifies the central mistake couples make during conflict as believing their interpretation of events is objective truth. The fight over dishes or lateness is merely a surface event. The real roadblocks is the internal subjective story you have told yourself. So, what you have to do is basically hold the story lightly. To break this pattern, you must shift from presenting your interpretation as fact to acknowledging it as your personal narrative. The crucial tool is to hold your story lightly and avoid being carried away by it. In relational life therapy, clients are taught to use the phrase, what I make up is, or the story I tell myself is, or referring to the belief as my fantasy or my construction. Now, this subjective language is a deliberate act of humility that forces you to take ownership of your own process. By claiming, what I make up is, you avoid the objective voice, which is, this is who you really are, and then you stay on your side of the line. Claiming objective reality, which is, you're rude, is basically you're heading for an argument because your partner will naturally deny it. The great advantage of using the subjective voice is that no one can argue with you. You can say, I experienced you as being rude, or that's how it felt for me, and the reality of your feeling will be undeniable. Now, the second one would be responsibility for the feelings. Now, the second critical component of effective conflict management is recognizing and taking full responsibility for your own emotional reactions. Every person is responsible for their own feelings. Sorry. Yes. So Like I was saying, every person is responsible for their own feelings. Your partner's action, which is being late, is the occasion or trigger for the feeling. But what you choose to feel about that action is entirely up to you. For example, I may have been 10 minutes late and I take responsibility for my behavior. But consider this: person A is furious, person B is anxious, person C is catching up on emails and doesn't give a damn, person D is 10 minutes later than I am. How you see things, the story you tell yourself, will determine how you feel about them. In RLT, we outlaw the language of blame. The phrase makes me is considered victim talk. The idea that you should feel guilty about how bad it makes me feel is simply bad boundaries. Even saying, I feel guilty that I made you feel bad, is still blame disguised as morality. How about we just knock it off? Instead, we recognize that affect follows cognition. Cognition is basically your thinking. Your feelings are generated internally because you told yourself a story. For instance, I didn't like it. I told myself a story that I wasn't valuable to you. The beauty of owning your story is that you regain control of your own feelings. It is not up to your partner to make you feel better, just as it wasn't up to them to make you feel bad. You are responsible. And the third one would be changing the negative narrative. Now, to improve the relationship, you must actively manage the stories you tell yourself. You can start by scanning for the positive. The core discipline is to hold your negative stories with a grain of salt, which is known as the pinch of salt, and actively engage in scanning for the positive. Most couples default to scanning for the negative, focusing on what's wrong. You must actively seek what you like and what you can agree to and lead with that information, as negative breeds negative and positive quite often breeds positive. Treating others as they ought to be. The goal is to move past focusing on your partner's character flaws or their worst side and instead interacting with the best of them. The poet Goethe summarizes the transformative power of changing your story about another person. If you treat someone as they are, they will be as they are. If you treat them as they ought to be, they may become who they ought to be. The negative stories you hold constrict both you and the relationship. By moving beyond them, you create a space for a healthier script. And the last one would be fighting to understand. The ultimate goal of conflict is to move from fighting to win to fighting to understand. This means diving beneath the surface level disagreement to grasp the deeper values, the history, the aspirations that fuel your partner's position. This approach, which is centered on perpetual problems, which are like the issues that never fully actually go away, they can never be fully solved, such as, all those plague couples in gridlock, aims not for resolution but for dialogue. The key is to transform the negative emotions surrounding the issue. This is a two-step process, often facilitated by the dreams within conflict conversation. Step one would be which is called the surface the hidden dreams. The goal here is for each partner to identify and disclose the underlying dream that fuels their position on the conflict. For these tender dreams to emerge, the relationship must feel safe and both partners must feel understood and supported. The conversation is structured with a speaker and a listener who switch roles after 15 minutes. Here, the speaker's job would be your task would be to talk honestly about the feelings and beliefs behind your position. You must explain what you really want on this issue and why it is important to you. The dream, the story, or the belief that underlies your position, including its source and what it symbolizes to you, which is like a desire for security or autonomy or feeling cherished. Here, you're not arguing, you're persuading your partner. You're just simply explaining how you see things so that they can fully, truly understand you. And for the listener's job, your primary role is to make your partner feel safe enough to tell you their story and their dream. You must listen like a friend, suspending judgment and acting with genuine interest. You can even ask gentle, open ended questions to draw out your partner's point of view. Do not try to solve the problem or argue your point of view. Your task is simply to hear the dream and its meaning and it will allow your partner to turn from a foe into a friend in the dialogue. Step two would be to honor one another's dreams. Here, you would help the couple honor each other's newly surfaced dreams. Honoring is a hierarchy of support that begins with interest, respect, and words of encouragement at the lowest level and moves to joining in the partner's dream and teamwork to fulfill it at the highest levels. Here, some of the sample questions for the dream catcher, which is the listener, would be: do you have any core beliefs, ethics, or values that are part of your position on this issue? Is there a story behind this for you, or does this relate to your background or childhood history in some way? Tell me why this is so important to you. So, this is some of the sample dreams for the dream speaker, which is: these are the reasons, which is a sense of freedom, the experience of peace, or unity with nature. To help you understand it better, I have given an explanation through an example of a conflict. Now, let's say there are two people, Siddharth and Nidhi. Now, Siddharth is saying, my partner is constantly trying to persuade me to try new things, which is crafts or redecorating the apartment, strange recipes. It drives me nuts. It's crazy. I can't live this way. And Nidhi is saying, my partner's lifestyle is stifling me. They just want to watch movies all day. I can barely get them off the couch. They don't know how to live. I need more excitement in my life. And here you can see the possible dreams within the conflict, which is Siddharth is saying, my parents were always busy. We moved around a lot. I never knew what I was coming home to. I never had stability. And now that we are settled down, I feel so lucky. I finally feel secure. And for Nidhi, she said, my parents worked all the time, and my siblings and I had to invent games to keep ourselves from drowning in boredom. We were lonely and isolated. Now I'm an adult and I can try new things, and I never have to go back there again. So you can see the dreams within the two positions that they share. Now, once you have identified the dreams that underlie the areas of your conflict, your previously gridlocked conversation about the subject of disagreement can change radically. And for your conclusion, now we have taken a journey from the scientific lab to the messy reality of your living room. We have uncovered why we get hijacked by our bodies, learned to identify the self defeating patterns, and most importantly, equipped ourselves with the skills to repair and reconnect. Ultimately, all of this comes down to a choice. The great relational question is: do you want to be right or do you want to be married? Are you willing to trade the fleeting satisfaction of winning an argument for the profound and lasting reward of connection? The stories we hold about our partners are often what constrict our relationships. And like I said, the poet Goethe said, if you treat someone as they are, they will be as they are. If you treat them as they ought to be, they may become who they ought to be. Your effort to move beyond the negative stories and to interact with the best of them is an act of grace that will transform both you, your partner, and your relationship. The process is the one that shapes the experience. The form is more important than the content. Today, I invite you to take the first step in this new dance of connection. Close your playbook of losing strategies, take a breath, take a break, and choose to be wise, not right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your insightful session. Now we'll take up a few questions from the participants. The first one is: what role does ego play in how men manage or mishandle arguments?
Can you just give me 1 minute?
Yes, ma'am, sure.
Yes. Okay. Hello. So, what role does ego play in how men manage or mishandle arguments? Now, I would say that ego is pretty destructive to any kind of relationship. I think the greatest way of being mature is actually shedding your ego, because ego comes with a form of like a place of superiority. And this is where even contempt can take in. And we have all seen that one of the four horsemen was contempt. So I would say that the biggest way to let go of your ego, I mean, the biggest way, the biggest thing you can do for your relationships is to actually shed your ego.
Yes. Also, how does communication style influence the way conflicts, or how do they get resolved? How does your style of communication? influencing?
Okay. So there are various communication styles, like I mentioned in the beginning, which was the validators or the avoiders or the volatiles. Now, each of them does have its own influence, but like I said, I think I mentioned that all of them can be right. However, it's the golden ratio that we talk about, which is the 5:1 ratio, which is the positive interactions to the negative interactions. However, I would say that usually the volatile response is the one that creates the most damage. So it is better to come from it's a good start with the validator response where you're able to problem solve and see in the long run. I mean, you should be able to take a break, pause, and see how many options are there. What is your outcome of the conversation? What do you actually want? And then how, in the best possible way, what can you actually take to reach that outcome without actually hurting the relationship or your partner?
Okay. So the next question is, what role does empathy and active listening play in managing disagreements?
Oh, that's wonderful question. Now, active listening goes beyond your just the listening. It's about actually being able to like listen, summarize, see the other person's point of view, and like I said, confirm from the other person that you are actually listening to what they actually wanted to communicate with you. Empathy is like your theory of mind, which is I'm able to like place myself in the other person's shoes and their experience. Basically, you step into their world of experience. And this goes a long way because actually there's no such thing as objective reality in a relationship. It's known as intersubjective reality. Both of you make the reality. Now, my perspective might be very different from your perspective. The things that I experienced, the reality that I experienced was very different from the way that you experienced the very same thing. So it is important to in that sense would also be to shed your ego, to know that your experience is markedly different from the way your partner experienced something, and to step into their world and listen to their point of view and then navigate the conflict.
Next question is from Satvika. In long distance relationships, what unique conflicts, challenges arise, and how can they be resolved?
Hmm. Uh, that's actually a pretty personal question as well. Long distance relationships. I think so many of us are in long distance relationships. And of course, the communication is one of the biggest things that we face. I think it's the lack of like being able to tell someone, like meet someone face to face, that physical affection is missing. And but I think the best way you can go about it is actually doing a lot of shared activities. Even like now, I mean, now we're living in a digital world. You can plan many activities together. You can start watching movies together. You can try to include them in as much of your day as possible, like sharing like every single thing that goes on, even with the time difference. Even if your partner is sleeping, let's say, it's okay, just drop in a message saying that, hey, I'm thinking of you, or I saw his favorite, let's say, candy in a store. Just take a picture and just say that, if you were here, I would have definitely bought this for you. Or today, let's say, even sharing the other person's achievements as though they are here and doing it for that. So I mean, it's all in the little things. You don't have to make it so grand. It's all in the small relationship efforts, basically.
Yes, ma'am. So the next one is, what daily habits or practices can strengthen relationships and reduce the chance of conflicts?
I would say one thing is always think about the other person. Always. Be selfless. Think about how you can actually choose to wake up and do something for the other person, like how to make their day better today. Even if it's as simple as like, I'm gonna go and grab cold coffee for them. Um, Practicing that empathy or that appreciation, always showing that. It really goes a long way.
The last question would be, what role do trust and forgiveness play in healing after conflicts?
Ah, okay. Now it really depends on what kind of conflicts you're also having. And sometimes I would say that forgiveness is a really big act, I would say. I think especially if we consider like infidelity, that becomes really hard for you to like forgive your partner for. I would say forgiveness is very personal for everyone. I wouldn't say that, you need to forgive a person. However, if you can do that big act, I think your relationship would do wonders. Trust is the foundation of your relationship. Without it, the relationship wouldn't stand at all. You can actually cultivate trust by in all the little things that may, especially like you can even ask them like, what would actually make you trust me even more? What would make you feel secure in this relationship? And doing all those things to actually get that trust and secure into the relationship.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for that. I think before we end, I would just like to show you our platform that made today's webinar successful. I'll be sharing my screen now. Ma'am, is it visible?
Yes.
So, welcome to MedWorld Expo. We're a leading healthcare networking platform. We have more than 6,000 manufacturers with us. We are also have 7,000 distributors and then around 9,000 healthcare service providers. We hold 2 lakh medical products. We display them. So most of our participants are medical students or doctors. I would like to show how it's helpful for them.
Mhm.
So if you go here under events, there are webinars that which you can view, like today's ones, the upcoming ones, the previous webinars, all of the information is in here. And then under knowledge, we have news and insights. So these news and insights are medical related, which can keep you up to date. And then we have MedWorld blogs where various doctors and students can write their blogs and share information. Also, we have a dedicated jobs portal where medical students can find jobs in different specializations, and we hold around 14,000 verified employers. So the jobs can be found from here. I think that's about it.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you, everyone.